Good morning. Hello, it's FreightWaves Now coming to you on Taco Tuesday style. Thanks for joining us today. We have got our chief meteorologist back in the kitchen ready to tell us what's happening across our fair land, and Donny Gilbert giving us the highs and the lows of what is happening with volumes and capacity out there. He's also going to be looking a little bit close up at what is happening in some key market areas and what does that mean in terms of how it compares to the overall look of the land. Without further ado, let's get started. Nick Austin, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello,
welcome back.
Chad. Hey, it's springtime, so we're seeing fewer snowstorms across the United States. So
I don't see any blue. It's great.
There's very, very little. We're going to talk about one little area of snow that will be ongoing today, but you know, when we come in the spring, the focus is severe thunderstorms, possible tornadoes, things like that. But one area of snow, now this isn't really huge as far as in the way of transportation, but I-25 does go through northern New Mexico, near the Santa Fe area, some of the mountains and the highest elevations right across northern New Mexico. Those are called the Sangre de Cristo Mountains.
Oh yes, it's a beautiful area.
It is beautiful, and they go up into Colorado too, into southern Colorado. That's where the snowfall will primarily be today, as far as any significant
Coming out of
snow.
New Mexico.
That's right.
Crazy.
Little system moving through the southwest. So we're talking about several more inches of snow today, up to about maybe 6-8 inches of snow in those highest elevations. But the focus, as I mentioned, really is on severe weather. So particularly across Texas today, and maybe even a part of tonight, parts of the Panhandle, around Midland, Texas, that's right here in West Texas, all the way up to Dallas, possibility of severe storms. Not a widespread outbreak and not a lot of tornadoes, but severe storms will be kind of scattered across that swath. So along the I-20 corridor, we will see some areas that'll get torrential downpours, possibly some large hail, and some sudden wind gusts, very strong wind gusts. So that's one focus area there.
Okay.
There's another part of the country.
Wild West, Texas.
The Wild West,
Dangerous,
that's right.
Lots of accidents happen there.
Now later today and tonight, we could also see severe weather from right around Cincinnati up to Pittsburgh, including parts of West Virginia. So again, this is just kind of going to be like a scattered swath, as we say, of some severe storms, not a widespread outbreak. Again, the tornado chances are very low, which is good. But there could be areas of really strong winds that could cause some damage, torrential downpours and large hail that maybe at some points along that path could cause some minor or moderate delays for drivers out there. So luckily no major impactful weather, but there's ongoing flooding in the plain states, including those areas that got hit really hard last month, like eastern Nebraska and into Iowa. So we have to kind of watch out for that too. There might be just some minor roadblocks and delays here and there with some of that flooding. Okay. So hey, we love the road conditions product, right?
Oh,
on
we
sonar.
do. Love that.
So we'll show that real quick. And mainly what it's really going to show is that across, especially those areas that are going to see those possible severe thunderstorms, you should see a lot of those roads turning blue. So, and we'll just kind of take a look at, you know, the whole lower 48. A lot of wet conditions across Texas, other parts of the Southwest.
And it kind of progresses.
That's right. Because some of that could last into the nighttime too, not just for today. So again, minor, maybe moderate delays in some of those areas impacted by the storms.
Okay. Thank you, Nick Austin.
You bet.
Great to have you back in the saddle. What a difference it makes to have a chief meteorologist in the kitchen, right? Instead of the junior scientist of Zach Strickland yesterday. What a difference. So now, market expert Donny Gilbert bringing it to us.
Good afternoon, Chad.
Good afternoon.
So Zach kind of talked about the outbound tender volumes and tender rejects for the U.S., so I'm going to kind of quickly touch base.
Giving us a macro look.
Easter Sunday, then it dropped down. Our volumes dropped. So kind of what we expected after a holiday, but we have found the new rock bottom for outbound tender rejections.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we're now at 4.76% on the rejection rate, so that's gone down a little bit more.
We've been wondering how low it could go.
We found that it can go a little bit lower than the 4.85 that we found last.
We haven't quite hit rock bottom.
So this cycle should kind of follow on through and start picking back up near the end of the week, so hopefully that won't take too much longer for volume to start picking back up. Last year, about mid-May, they started breaking 10,000 again, so we hope around mid-May this year we'll get back above the 10,000 mark.
How many more times must we report these low rates? I am predicting they will be going up.
Well, as long as we have a lot of capacity in the market, which we do right now, they're going to stay down.
But
So
what about volumes? Are they coming back up?
they
Staying
will.
up?
Like I say, we hit the Easter holiday, so that's going to have an effect for a while. People closed early on Good Friday. A lot of shippers that were actually open on Saturday were probably closed. All shippers were probably closed on Sunday. So that 2.5 day period has really put an impact on this week. So once we get through on in towards the latter part of the week, thus you start picking back up.
Okay.
So let's go to a little bit more fun map that I enjoy, our tree map. And I have decided to pull our head haul index on the tree map.
Whoa.
And this is a little bit different than on the others. Most time you see the big blocks up here in the top right, and as you get over here to the far bottom left, or bottom right, I'm sorry,
yes.
they're really, really small, but it's the same setup. The top left are your larger numbers, and your bottom right are your smallest numbers. But we cross zero in our head haul market. Positive ones show more loads than trucks, and negative ones show more trucks than loads. So right around in here, we hit the zero mark. And that's what
Okay.
makes this map really, really interesting. So we kind of use a number of about 50 to kind of say, if you're above 50, we know that you're for sure a strong head haul market. And if you're below negative 50, you're for sure a very strong back haul market.
And for clarity, so you mean with this overall number here, as we can see, they go way down. Not about the movement,
Right,
the
and,
recent movement.
This is your percent change from the last time it was documented, which was yesterday. So right around in here at the top, we hit our zero. And then as we move up, you'll notice that there's only about 4 markets that are actually above the 50 mark. Los Angeles and Ontario, which is their side by side, Memphis and Harrisburg, which are 4 of the top 6 markets.
Okay.
And still Los Angeles, if you look at their outbound tender rejections, that it's only 1.47%. So they're not actually hurting on capacity. They're drawing a lot of capacity from middle and northern California where they're struggling for loads, and those guys will deadhead back down. Okay. Memphis draws in capacity from Arkansas and even Tennessee and Mississippi will come up to Memphis. So they're not really hurting that bad on capacity. And of course, Harrisburg, that pulls in capacity from from the Northeast. They'll all come down to Harrisburg and try to get a load and get out of the Northeastern market. So really, of these top 4, none of these are hurting on capacity, which is keeping our outbound tender rejects fairly suppressed.
And so the colors in this case, green being positive, of course, red being negative, are how much they've recently changed, not how they are overall.
Correct. So this is actually the green is the head haul index growing, and the red is the market shrinking on capacity. So it's a good way to gauge. And then we get down in here into our smaller markets. Phoenix, Arizona, a lot of people, Phoenix is a backhaul market 90% of the year, as well as Stockton. These trucks will move to Southern California. These trucks will move to Southern California. They'll actually charge more for long hauls going across the U.S. to deliver into Phoenix, which is less miles than delivering into Southern California. So they'll charge a few $100s more and then deadhead to Southern California where all the volumes are to get a load going back across the U.S.
Of course, I noticed Lakeland here, usually major backhaul.
And Miami as well.
And both seeing positive gains, which could be a seasonality indicator.
They're normally, hopefully, but this will start to take off, we hope, around mid-May. But as we've seen so far this year, our produce season has not been as strong as we had hoped for. So we just don't have any steam behind the engine yet on produce. So last year, about May 6th, May 7th, Miami started to take off. With all the wet rains that we've had and some crop damage, we hope that it may take off maybe about a week later, but we'll get to that. So coming up next, we're going to kind of take a peek at the produce season. Go ahead.
Conspicuous by its absence was Atlanta on our head haul market. What?
It's in there. It's not a strong head haul market. It's just in the middle.
Okay. So it was just real tiny up there in the middle.
Yeah, Atlanta draws in from a lot of the rural markets around Atlanta. They'll all deadhead back into Atlanta because Atlanta has all the volumes.
Yes.
So when you have it, Atlanta is right in here. A lot of these, Atlanta is right here. A lot of these rural markets around in here will deadhead into Atlanta because Atlanta has all the volumes, and they'll get their loads out. So they'll deliver out in these markets and run back in.
Oh.
So Atlanta's not struggling on capacity either. As we kind of saw with the very low outbound tender rejects for the nation, there's just a lot of capacity in the U.S. right now. So what we're looking at right now, this is tender rejects for reefers, not dry vans.
Tender? Okay, reefer tender reject index.
Yes,
okay.
and a reason I brought up the reefer was because a lot of your produce is going to be ran on the reefer trailers. We saw this region pick up last week where they were kind of strawberry starting to move, and it started to actually blow up a little bit. Well, that's now calmed down. We were hoping to see some activity out of the Phoenix region, moving across El Paso, Laredo, and as you can see, even Southern California with the produce there. We've seen it's just been.
Can we play a little where Donny was right, where Donny was wrong? Because I think you've been predicting some movement here with seasonality since about April 8th.
I did.
And we're still not seeing it.
Well, you know what? I went off historical numbers. And of course, that's not always a great way to go. It's something to start with, but that's why we look at our sonar. We can see when it's not going to take off. So we've watched it. Laredo's been a disappointment. Phoenix hasn't picked up, but we've done some studies kind of into this, and we found out that Mexico has decided that there's a lot more demand for their onions. So they're not going to export near as many onions as they had first predicted. Texas had a problem where 1,600 acres of onions were not brought to harvest this year. And part of that was due to flooding, and part of that was due to previous rains where they were not actually able to get in there and plant the fields.
Wow.
Southern Georgia, they're having an issue where 17% of their onion crop is not going to be harvested this year. And the same reasons, heavy rains, fields were not planted, or some of the crop was lost. Some of the crop was lost due to flooding.
That's terrible news. I like to have onions in my diet each and every day.
Well, watch the stores, because now people are already starting to predict that the price of onions in our stores are going to start to elevate because the supply was constricted. So less onions coming into the market, you might start seeing your onion crop start to rise. So what's kind of starting to happen is, we believe, due to all the wet weather that we've had over the past several months, we're hoping that some of this is just delayed a week or two, and that the crops will come to harvest. It is going to happen. How strong of an impact it's going to have on our markets, we'll see. We have a lot of capacity, so it might kind of balance out. So with tender rejects, looking at this is not volume. This is just the rejects. So as long as carriers have few options, you will not see the blue popping up. This is our kind of where a lot of poultry is coming out of. They have a lot of options here, but this is not produce. So here rates are elevated along the warmer areas where our produce is produced. It is not. We still see a little bit of blue in the Columbia, South Carolina region, so go South Carolina.
All right, maybe it's a trend.
Maybe it's a trend.
All right.
Let's go ahead and check out Laredo. I've been watching Laredo.
You're bravely pulling up Laredo.
I am. I love Laredo. I was expecting a big year out of Laredo. Laredo normally sees the volumes double, but this year we're still at the 29 mark, and 29 is not in the 60s where I was hoping it to be at this point of the year. So Laredo has a lot of the volumes that are coming in from Mexico. Now, Laredo's not the only place that the produce from Mexico delivers to, but it's normally a very, very strong point and a good one to watch.
A huge percentage comes out of there, right? That often filters to Houston and Dallas.
Yes, but a lot of times your Mexican carriers will have permission to go ahead and enter the U.S. with their trailers and not unload and reload in the Laredo market. So you might see, we saw San Antonio yesterday picking up. So they might avoid Laredo and going up to San Antonio, hoping for cheaper outbound rates from San Antonio than Laredo, because Laredo at this time is normally very hot and the rates start elevating very, very quickly. So they might have already had that pre-planned. You'll also have them deliver on in straight on to the Dallas, where they'll be warehoused and split up and sent out. So
maybe some different methods and approaches which would affect capacity.
Yes, I think
rates.
a lot of the shippers expected Laredo to blow up again and there be a capacity constraint, which drives the carrier rates up. And that just has not happened this year. We have a low rejection rate, and we have a very low rejection rate at 3.42%, and the volumes are not picking up. So it's a struggle. So that's the bad.
That is one microcosm that you're looking at.
And so I was going to bring up another chart, and this just kind of shows how sonar really shows what happens in the U.S. We've been talking about over the past few weeks where floods have hit the Nebraska area and South Dakota, along those areas. And a great chart to show this is Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Surprisingly enough.
The waters breached the banks on March 19th. And from March 19th on, we've kind of seen a lot of ups and downs that really show what happens when a disaster strikes. So March 19th is right around in here. And as you see, all of a sudden, our outbound tender rejections drop.
Because they were getting out.
Let's get out. All right, take what you can get the trucks, get them out of here. And as you see, the volumes kind of rise. And that's the shipper saying, hey, let's get our product, let's get it out of here right now before it floods. So there's a big rush of volume before it floods, and drivers saying, hey, get what you can, let's get out of this market. And it follows through for a few days where the tender rejections really drop down until we get to this point where they cross back again. You see the tender volumes come down. That's where a lot of shippers had to close, and this is where we're in the flood. And then there were some trucks that were left in the market that stayed, probably local carriers and whatnot, and that drove the tender rejections a lot higher because there was a lot more options for them to choose from. A lot of your carriers will avoid situations like this when disaster strikes. They have options to go all over the U.S. Why go to an area that's flooding? There's a lot more risk. They can lose a truck if you get in the wrong position. So for the same rates that they're getting offered, they'll just go to the Midwest or go to Texas. They'll just go elsewhere and avoid it. So when that happens, your supply of trucks really tightens up, and you'll see your outbound tender rejections start to spike as rates go up. So we saw volumes go down and rates go up. As we come on through, we kind of start getting back to more of a normalcy after the fact. Yeah. But you'll see some spikes here and there, and this could be from the threat of rains. As you know, rumors spread very quickly through drivers, and they get kind of nervous when they say, oh, it's going to rain again, there might be more floods. And they all of a sudden stop and they won't go there again. Yeah. Rates will start to go up. So you'll see some spikes, and it's here the last few days, it's kind of leveled out. We've seen our volumes go down. There's been a lot of damage. A lot of grain storage bins were flooded out. So our volumes are down as the shippers have been hurt from the devastation. So this is kind of where I like Sonar, where it really shows you what's going on as you go through.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, way to take some data and see how it literally tells a story. Thank you, Donny. Wow, fantastic analysis. An analyst and a storyteller, as it were. So thanks for tuning in to FreightWaves Now, where we're bringing it to you live each and every day. What is happening right now, coming at you at 4 o'clock Eastern time. And you know what? Like, we are going to be bringing you the tip of the weekly cycle on Wednesday with our intermodal intermediary Mike O'Brien, and an inaugural debut, I know that's redundant, of Kevin Hill, previously still with Carrier List. You know, we like to tell stories too. We have a story to tell. One of them is Transparency 19. We are having a gigantic, exciting event, national, international, really. It's going to be in May 6th through 8th. And you know what? If you want a live demo of Sonar in person there, we now are offering that opportunity. So if you come to Transparency 19, where all the cool kids are going to be, where it's all happening in freight and tech and innovation, we'd like to see you there, and you can even do a demo for bonus. All right, in the meantime, everyone, we will see you tomorrow. Stay safe out there in these wet conditions throughout our land, and don't worry, be happy.